Most gardeners I know make the same mistake over and over. They rinse their rice and pour the water down the drain, thinking it's useless. That's a huge missed opportunity. I've seen it firsthand in my backyard beds, raised beds, and even hydroponic setups. Plants starve for nutrients that are literally going down the drain. Rice water is packed with nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and trace minerals, the very elements plants need to thrive. Neglecting this is not just wasteful, it slows growth, weakens leaves, and limits your harvest. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to Farm Logic. You'll want every tip we share if you're serious about growing better food. Here's the thing. Not all rice water is created equal, and blindly using it can backfire. Straight from the bag rinse water has some nutrients, but it's also loaded with starches that can ferment unpredictably. If you pour it directly on your plants, you risk creating a slimy coating on leaves or roots and invite unwanted bacteria. The method that actually works involves controlled fermentation, timing, and proper dilution. Over the years, I've tested different approaches, and I'll walk you through exactly what I do in real-world conditions. If you're working with a small backyard garden, the starting point is simple. After washing your rice, let the water sit for 24 to 48 hours at room temperature. You'll notice it starts to smell slightly sour. That's natural. That's when beneficial microbes start breaking down the starches into nutrients plants can absorb. For a 10-liter bucket of rice water, I dilute it with 3 times its volume of plain water before applying it to soil. Pour it directly at the base of plants, making sure it reaches the root zone. Tomatoes, leafy greens, and peppers respond extremely well to this. They grow faster, leaves stay deep green, and the soil microbial activity noticeably increases. Raised beds need a slightly different approach. Because the soil is shallower and often more controlled, concentration matters. I reduce the rice-water ratio to 1 part rice water to 5 parts clean water. The reason is simple. Roots in raised beds can't handle nutrient overload the same way in-ground plants do. I pour the diluted rice water early in the morning so the soil absorbs it before midday heat. I've tested this repeatedly on beds with kale and spinach. After 2 weeks, the difference is visible. Bigger leaves, sturdier stems, and more consistent growth. Using a good compost thermometer is key here. I rely on the Rio Temp heavy-duty compost thermometer. The link is in the description. It helps me monitor the soil and compost temperatures, ensuring the microbial activity that helps rice water work. Its magic is at its peak. Hydroponic systems are another story. Nutrient balance is critical because you're not working with soil buffering excesses. I rarely use undiluted rice water in hydro setups, but I have success using it as a supplement to the main nutrient solution. I start with a 1:10 ratio of rice water to system water and test EC levels to make sure I'm not shocking the plants. In hydroponics, timing is everything. I apply it during vegetative growth when plants are actively taking up nutrients. I've done this with lettuce, basil, and even small tomato plants, and in every case, growth accelerated without signs of nutrient burn. So many sources claim you can just spray rice water on leaves for foliar feeding, but I want to caution you against this unless it's heavily diluted, like 1:20, because the starches can clog stomata and actually reduce photosynthesis. Honestly, stick to root application for serious results, especially if your goal is dense, nutrient-rich growth rather than just, faster green leaves. If you're using hydro systems, avoid foliar spraying entirely. The nutrient load is too delicate. A common myth is that fermented rice water can replace compost or chemical fertilizers entirely. That's misleading. Rice water is a supplement. It enhances existing fertility, but doesn't contain all micronutrients in the right ratios. Use it alongside compost or high-quality organic fertilizers. For example, In my raised beds, I apply rice water twice a week while continuing my regular compost and worm casting schedule. The result is stronger, healthier plants, but only because the base soil fertility is solid. The beauty of rice water is its simplicity and cost-effectiveness. You're turning something you'd discard into a potent growth booster. It also works well in combination with other natural amendments. I mix diluted rice water with a small amount of compost tea on alternating days, and the microbial activity, well, it just skyrockets. This combination keeps soil alive, feeds roots, and reduces the need for chemical interventions. Over several seasons, I've seen soil structure improve, water retention increase, and even pest resistance slightly improve, likely due to the healthier microbial ecosystem. Here's a pro tip. Don't just eyeball your measurements. Start small and track results. I keep a dedicated bucket for rice water and always note the volume and dilution I use for each application. This makes it easy to replicate successes or adjust ratios if a crop shows signs of stress. For instance, cucumbers tend to tolerate slightly stronger concentrations than lettuce, while peppers need a lighter touch. Observing your plants closely will give you far more insight than any generic advice. Another factor many gardeners overlook is temperature. Fermentation is slower in cold weather and faster in hot weather. I recommend using a compost thermometer to monitor the bucket. Ideal rice water fermentation happens around 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's hotter, reduce fermentation time to avoid unpleasant odors or bacterial overgrowth. The RioTemp heavy-duty compost thermometer I mentioned earlier is robust enough to use directly in your rice water bucket or compost piles, giving you reliable readings every time. It's a simple tool, but in serious gardening, accurate monitoring is often the difference between success and failure. Finally, let's talk about consistency. You don't want to apply rice water once and expect miracles. I treat it as part of my regular fertility program, twice a week in backyard soil, once a week in raised beds, and as a minor supplement in hydroponics. Over months, plants show improved color, stronger stems, and higher yields. It also integrates seamlessly with other natural practices, composting, mulching, worm castings, so you're building an ecosystem rather than just feeding plants. To wrap this up, rice water is far from a gimmick. Used properly, it's a practical, inexpensive, and effective supplement that serious gardeners can integrate into any system, backyard, raised beds, or hydroponic. The key is controlled fermentation, proper dilution, timing, and consistency. And if you're serious about maximizing microbial activity in your soil or compost to make rice water even more effective, check the RioTemp heavy-duty compost thermometer in the description. It's an essential tool I rely on daily. If you found this guide valuable, subscribe to Farm Logic. We're here to share practical, experience-driven techniques that actually improve food production. And don't forget to share this video with other gardeners who are wasting rice water. Turn what would be waste into one of your best growth tools and see your plants thrive like never before.